And welcome back to Waaaghtaktiks. Here today, we have Mork Perry to talk about his brutal but cunning list. And with that being said, let's give a shout out to today's sponsor, the Baron of Dice. So check out the Baron of Dice. They have great quality dice. Don't spin around too much and get lost in the sauce. I recommend them 5% off because nobody likes taxes. So thank you very much to the Baron of Dice, and check them out. My favorite. And here we have Mork Perry. Whoa! Just coming off his GT win at a very stacked event. So how are you doing, Mr. Mork Perry?
I'm doing great. I'm over here surviving, rolling dice, and resolving shotgun attack guns. That feels great.
Yeah, cracking skulls, taking names, big old scores. So real quick, if you haven't seen, Mork Perry ended up winning an event right here, getting 3 100-point wins, 2 scores as well. Earlier than that, a little rougher game scoring, so we can talk about those to get a first-person hand view. Stacked event. You can see John Lennon was in second place. So Mork was out. You were out there just fighting for that top spot, boy. So we'll go over past the victory. What are you saying, buddy?
Oh, I was like struggling. Actually, not, but yeah. Sorry.
So, with that being said, let's run through your list real quick so that we can talk to you about it and elaborate, because I got some good questions here. And of course, the chat's live, so say what you guys got to say. Let Mork Perry get a wall from the chat. So, starting off with Tactics and Suds, we have a Big Mech in Mega Armor with Mech Captain enhancements, 3 Big Mechs with Shock Attack guns, a War Boss as the Warlord with Gob Boomer. We have a Weirdboy with Mork's Cunning. That is a correction from what it looks like on BCP, because it says it was on a different unit. He didn't want that because if the unit's embarked in a transport, it shouldn't be able to activate its enhancements as the transports turn off all abilities. Therefore, that's why he's on the Weirdboy, so he can be on the table. And then last but certainly not least, we have Zodgrod-led Gretchin. Something that is exciting everybody is Mork Perry battle line, 20 boys with the shooters. That's wild. So we're definitely going to elaborate on that. 3 Storm Boys, 3 5-man units. We have a battle wagon with Ard Case, rocking a cannon. 10 Flash Gitz for that Big Mech and Mega Armor. A max unit of Gretchin, a minimum size unit Gretchin. A Morkanaut, which I know was catching everybody off guard. Everybody that sees this be like, a Morkanaut's on here? Let me refresh. Do you have a typo? No typo. Followed by 3 Tankbusters. The Knob did have rocket pistol, the dual rocket pistols, and they did have the Pulsar rocket as their war gear option. So, Mork Perry, what's up with your list? You cunning git?
Well, I don't really know what else to say than as I was developing a theory to give a little bit of history and context for newer orc players coming in here, and there's a lot of new blood in the game.
Oh yeah.
Or people that just weren't playing around that time. I played heavily in orcs last edition, and was one of the pioneers for figuring out freebooters back in the day. I went through 3 super majors and 3 events, and podied all of them, Jack Harpster, John Lennon, Sean Naden, twice actually. I luckily won it the first time. Was not one on stream. That goes to Logan Heath that did that at SoCal. That was wild. But shooting orcs is something that I'm very, very comfortable in. So I built the idea with this list was going off a lot of the old theory, a lot of the old idea of board control, and shoving guns down the trenches. Most particularly shotguns type down the trenches, where I'm going to go fight people at point blank range with my guns, shoot you, and get you out of here. And a lot of that goes with the unit selections that I have in here. The weird choice that you may see, obviously the Shoota Boyz, the Morkanaut. Why did I choose these? Stuff like that. I was developing a orc style that was idea that I'm going to make a death ball and just shove it down my opponent's throat at weaker angles and just force them out of buildings. That's if you got to put the list in one little couple sentences, a few words possible. That's really what it was. And then we get all the cool details as this goes on. But
So
for everyone that's jumping around the bat, that's what I was thinking.
yeah. So what does the ideal turn look like for this list? A lot of people don't really understand Zod's execution here. What is the Shoota Boyz even trying to shoot when they do end up in place? Why the Weirdboy over a Painboy, for example? Just a little bit of how would your first ideal turn look like? Not what you're trying to kill necessarily, maybe just overall target selection and placement in the board, right? Because when people think of a castle, they're thinking of, you know, Ultramarine Castle of I stand here and I obliterate you with getting rerolls, you know, or Castle wouldn't necessarily look like that. We have massive OC, for example, on this list. So what's going on here?
So what you just said, where I'm like trying to be like Castle and table hoop, that's actually what I'm doing. There's only one game where I didn't go through. Well, technically two, but like you had a unit left in the Great Night game as we get the matchups. And the Tyranny guys still had a fair amount of units left. Everyone else, we were, you know, it was tabled or a unit left on the board. And my thing was like, I'm just going to kill you. You know, I'm going to simplify the board state by, you know, giving you rockets in the face. With that in mind, with those, making those turn one typical standard plays was, I'm going to explain some of the units here first to make sense why these decisions were, what my turn one will make more sense once you understand what these units were meant to do. Let's say you take the 20-man boy squad with shooters. Okay? With the jump, you're not always guaranteed to jump. That was something that I am, you know, back and forth if I really want this package or not. But I wanted a really good initiator, either first screen, second screen for my, you know, my army. And that's either the boys or Zodgrod. Depending on the matchup, you know, one will go friendly the other. Okay? So with the Shoota Boyz is I want to be able to jump turn one, plop them in a key position, screen out my main important parts of the army, my juicy parts, hopefully be able to be a position where I'm putting sticky objectives on two objectives and say, hey, unless you come do something about it, these boys are going to stick you to objectives. And like, that's not counting my home field. So like, you know, inserting sticky objectives is a very powerful mechanic. Aggressively say, hey, you got to come out here and deal something about this. It goes with that. I'm trying to dig you out of the trenches. I'm trying to make my opponent have to deal with this unit. Otherwise, it just gains a really powerful position and advantage with the rule. The reason why the Shoota Boyz are good is because they allow you to jump, come up. You can pop the order for +1 to hit and reroll charges, or just stealthy cover. And the +1 to hit with the shooters, the slugger, the Weirdboy's gun, the combi weapon, and the two rocket launchers is typically very good about picking up, you know, 8 to 10 guardsman style bodies or T3 style bodies, or in a lot of cases, 5 Marines. Great opening play for that unit because it allows them to go up, bam, down, hit down an angle, remove it. Something trash unit, that means I have to use a power unit to do, while at the same time they've done multiple things. They're screening my army, applying sticky on the two objectives. They're a bunch of OC2 bodies. They could do actions. They could do all this interesting stuff as a tool unit. And the shooters were just really good at hitting on 4s for this random trash stuff. And that was the thing. It's like, you know, I want this proactive piece that forces game states where people don't have an easy answer to it, or it makes it means that it punishes people trying to castle against my gun line. Aggressive gun line, yes, but still nevertheless a gun line. Then on the other thing is it goes with the Morkanaut. Now this is going to go very important with iSync, and you can quote me on this all day. You can troll me about this all day. Met Captain is not the most powerful enhancement in this army. It's Mork's cunning. Redeployment is crazy strong with orc units. We talked about this when the detachment came out, and we did the live stream at Waffle House at I don't know how related it is. When people deploy, you know, they're either gonna not respect you as an orc, or they're gonna over respect you. And orc's deployment completely changes once they can look at your opponent and tell, hey, look, this is how they deploy. I'm like, okay, cool. I can completely just practically look at the game state, look at the board state, how you deployed, and adjust the first 2 turns. Because orcs can really overcommit into those first 2 turns and just break people based on how they deploy, or they can wait and be a little bit more cutting and wait until the opponent gets into a better position for you to jump on them, or just ride the position like, hey, look, I already have a commanding position here. I can wait for a later wall, and because you just gave board control to me because out of fear of respect, and really ride that and just be chill when I want to. It's never chill once any of these games. Either everyone didn't fear the army, didn't understand mathematically what it can do, or they saw that they could grind with it and be fine with grinding it. And so I didn't really get to do too much of the passiving, give a prelude to some of the games that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
But that goes with Mork's hunting is how do I maximize Mork's hunting in Army? One of the reasons why I chose the transports that I chose was to maximize that enhancement, to make it as powerful as possible. Where I can sit there a lot of times on deployment maps, 1 and 4 are very common at events, and sometimes you get some random other ones, is you typically have 2 to 3 lanes that these bigger mechanized lists are, these bigger, juicier infantry hordes are like big bricks of units, cannot hide at every single angle, right? So my ability to sit there and say, I can sit there and look at your deployment and say, there's an angle here, there's an angle here, but the other 5 angles are shut out. But during deployment, you can just not get countered by them by, where I put the battle wagon with all 3 Tankbustas, where I put the Morkanaut with the 10 Flash Gitz in them. And literally be able to pick up those 2 units, put them down at literally the angles where if I go first, it's easy peasy. I'm just ripping people apart. And if I go second, typically on Crucible, Tipping Point, Hammer and Anvil, which I played all those deployments, I'm able to just sit behind this one building where a Morkanaut and a battle wagon just hide, right? Or if I go second, they can't interact with them. If I go first, I'm interacting with you. And that's one of the benefits of having both the Morkanaut, the battle wagon in there with taking advantage of Mork's hunting. I can also redeploy a random Storm Boys where I can just put it off board. I considered Zodgrod's unit to be in my list building phase. That was going to be one of my redeploys. I never redeployed that unit actually. When I was like actually executing actual games with this, I was running into that situation mid-tournament. That I didn't need a redeploy for Zodgrod. I saw it was really strong, but I'm like, there's some niche scenarios where I was thinking about it, where it would come up, but not too often in actual execution. And to give some, as I'm continually talking fast in a very orky, excited way.
It's all good. I'll pull you back to that for all the summarization and clarifications, elaborations. You can just keep going, let it flow, and then we can hit it. That's what I'm here for. So keep going.
All right. I actually never redeployed them, and in actual execution of this game, this list has 5 games under its belt. Round 1 through 5. I did not get to play any practice rounds with this list, much less Taktikal Brigade since it's come out. Just work and life. It's all just Fury. That's one of the reasons why bringing up earlier about the freebooter stuff and having a massive experience for orcs. When I sees best orcs one point in life and I did all these things, cool. It matters because these are skills that I learned that translated to a modern era. And that's something for any of you new players. If you put in the extra stuff and really learn that, you're like, man, the game changes so fast. As a guy who's been in this game majority of his life now, it's always, trust me, I'm using stuff that I learned from back from a teenager in tactics and list building, theory crafting. 40K, if you really learn something and start to understand it, those things always repeat themselves. You learn those type of skills, and they will add value to them. Never feel like you're wasting your time. You want to play this game for a long term. It will come up at some point. You don't ever have to feel like you're just completely getting all your previous homework is just dead. Or someone else's theories. You can relook at some good content from other people and learn some of different tactics and so forth. So going with that, knowing that I didn't have that practice going into this game, I knew I need to stick to the game plan. And the game plan is, hey, look, if they go second, I'm just gonna, or if I go first in this case, I'm just gonna, most places, I'm just gonna load the heavy rocket launchers and go ham. So one of the biggest weaknesses with that in the theory casting, in my experience, is orcs have one giant weakness when it comes to their shooting, or just overall positioning. Is orcs are huge, dude. The models are massive. We got a lot of 32, 40 mil bases. We got battle wagons, Morkanauts, Flash Gitz on 40s. That's one of my biggest things I hate about Flash Gitz, is being on 40s. And maximizing my footprint, okay, was a big thing. And that comes from experience. And to maximize my footprint, I was thinking of all the different scenarios in my head. Most of the time, let's say in Crucible, if this is my home objective, I was actually most of the time deploying down here, pushing down these avenues into my opponent's terrain. And with that in mind, I needed one transport to take all the Flash Gitz or all the Tankbustas. Therefore, they could all support down the same lane and just dominate a lane. And when there is an opening onto key targets, I'm just making sure it's dead. None of this death by a few turns or 1,000 cuts. Usually, I'm going to kill you in one go with a unit. I'm not leaving those survivors. First I had double battle wagons, which is something I very, very believe in. But double battle wagons was a little awkward, where I'm like, I have like an extra 100 points, I can't figure out what to do. So I actually upgraded the battle wagon, because at first I was just going to do it with the Flash Gitz with the actual kill cannon on top. But that one battle wagon, I just kept finding a good spot where I'm like, I'm always getting it inside of terrain holding, and so it's not shooting.
It's longer
I'm like,
than the Morkanaut. Even though they're both big boys, it's long, It's
exactly, and like that's the thing, is like moving over, and like they're not moving over each other. The death rollers are awkward moving around, so I chose to go with the Morkanaut. It was a good tank shocker. It gave me some extra shooting, and sometimes flat 6 damage is great for in-game scenarios. Also, the other thing was that it was towering, which means that I could tiptoe in terrain, get the Flash Gitz out in the terrain, but just tiptoe the Morkanaut, move the battle wagon up in front of everything, get all the Tankbustas out. So, like, in about this much space, I'm fitting both battle wagon, Morkanaut, 18
Tankbusters,
Tankbustas, Sags, and the 10 Flash Gitz in their character. I'm fitting him in a hyper concentrated base-to-base formation.
That's so outrageous.
I'm just on top of it. And the Morkanaut allowed me to have that extra gun while also being a transport that was T12, and some extra, just shots. And he's tall enough at towering where he can get angles a lot easier than other folks can. The little rocket launcher on top of that thing is for some reason broken. I don't know how to describe it, but like it's taller than most buildings. So he just allows him to seize random things. So when shooting like 5 Marines, killing a few extra Marine bodies of any types, guardsmen, light transport, light vehicles, he's extra good damage. And something I was really liking in this army, and I almost had more of in the army, was more D6 damage stuff. And it's just more D6 damage stuff. So let's go. This is continuing with the turn 1 setup. So battle wagon, tank bus is typically in front of them if I'm pressuring, because they have a shorter range of 24, 60 with the shock attack gun. But they're pushing down into my opponent's deployment zone in multiple line of sights. Flash Gitz right side by them. Morkanaut in a similar position. And then Zodgrod's unit is just screened out in front of them. It's either the first layer of defense or the second layer of defense. And then the boys with the jump, either again in front or second, whichever layer based on it. And the reason why I made this deployment so tight is it allowed me to secure board control on my, my primary, whatever objective I decided I was going to take as my second objective, pressured the middle with the whole army. And a lot of these people that spread themselves out based on the missions are out in the distance. Sometimes I have an extra tank over here, so they're going to fight down this angle. I'm just not going to fight that. I'm going to remove that unit from the fight by just sheer positioning, by hyper concentrating myself in one key position and say, hey, look, a redeploy with Mork's cutting, not only with 2 units, is 1,280 points. The Morkanaut, the Flash Gitz character, the Battle Wagon, the Free Sagmic, and Tankbustas.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'm putting 1,200 points, almost 1,300 points of shooting in a small concentrated bubble down key lanes that most people do not concentrate as hard on. Okay, so we have that with that Fury in there. It's almost this is a style hilarious that I picked up back in the day from Chaos Space Marines with triple Dreadclaw drop pods. I love that army. I love the placement where I'm like, I just stack drop pods on top of each other with Dreadclaws with a flying base and noise Marines everywhere and Havocs, and I just layer it out, right? Like I'm so condensed that like melee armies can't just simply touch me because I have extra layers of screens with the Gretchin or the boys. And on top of that, if you do touch one unit, you do find a way through, I can fall back, shoot, and charge because we're tactical like that. We got that cunning tactics.
So yeah, there's a lot going on here that I think that did help clear some of it up, because what it looks like is you are playing still hyper aggressive, still getting on the initiative, but instead of doing the typical orc style of that, of I deploy on the line and I call a wall, and then if I don't go first, I get blown up. In this case, you were able to control everything that could possibly be killed, centrally focus it, and then when it did end up moving and disembarking, the fact that you, one, aren't stacking all over each other because the different sizes and placement of these vehicles, how you could put the Flash Gitz in the terrain, for example, if he did go and touch and shoot early, if you popped the Mork, which can happen in some games, now that placement allows them to freely disembark completely safely. Unlike, for example, other vehicles where they would have to, maybe tow outside to shoot with firing deck, for example. And when you did move those mass groups of boys up, they did have potential for what people would consider with orcs fighting in the backhand. But all in all, they're used defensive screens and for killing the other targets, while your primary focal point of your points was just deleting an entire lane, maybe even a whole flank of the enemy army, because if anybody was playing the perimeters or in reserve, they simply weren't on the table, which means the enemy never really had the output to devastate you or kill your army. The fact that you have so many wounds, and then a lot of them are ablative wounds where they're spread out into mass groups of boys and bodies, it just means that it's like they're not, and they keep popping stealth, for example, on these armies as well. You can pretty much just eliminate someone's combined force factor. You're going to stop all their charging into your elite units, and then you're going to just soak whatever shooting they have left over with mass bodies, moderately effective saves on anything that's a knob body, and then for the anti-tank, you have great 12 chassis with good wounds, and you're going to mostly take 5-up saves on them because the Morks and Vuln and the Armor of Contempt and the Battle Wagon. So ideal turn is literally, like you said, getting on their face, but understanding that this is focals of layers to it, but the layers are not simply because I have a weak character in the middle or something like that, like other factions. This is because no one can really commit, and then they can't counter combined arms factor you without having to eat all of your points in response of your shooting and whatever leftover combat, whatever mass OC you have if they get close and you start touching stuff. I can see this list getting really out of hand in a lot of different scenarios, especially if you go first, like you were saying. So we'll talk about your path to victory now, and elaborate more on some of these units as we go, because we still didn't even get to maximize some of these units we were talking about. But I want to pull up path to victory. That way you can elaborate more. So we have round one. You got Grey Knights. So these are Grey Knights. We have 3 Librarians, 3 Grandmaster Dread Knights, 2 Strikes, 3 Dread Knights, and then Assassins. So this is very much old school Dread Knight spam. Key points of this matchup game?
So this game is very much like who's going to make the first move, and if the first move is not great, it can spiral out of control fast. Who gets a slight little advantage in positioning and secondaries. And I know naturally that, hey, look, I have to be careful. Like, stealth cover is great, but if they just roll to hit, they roll to hit, and like they just do it naturally. Don't need no re-rolls from like Warpbane. This is a standard attachment, which has all the mobility. I don't want to just have to fight this army when it hit key units. I don't want to trade any key units, use them for damage until the right time has come. And really, that was like one of those, like, we both sat at each other, moved up, grind up. This is, again, where the boys were really important because the boys came through and started disrupting on his home objective, start tagging some stuff, and forces him to come out and play. And then what happened was he's like, great, I'll have to kill these boys. They're strung out in places. I have them strung out far enough across 2 objectives and slightly in his deployment zone where if you do not deal with them, and I do this turn 2. Turn 1, I just put them on an objective, and no man say, hey, if you want to come deal with them, you're taking the whole blunt of my army. He's like, I'm not dealing with that. And just gives me that secondary objective. I stick it, then I initiate. At turn 2 and say, you got to deal with this unit. Otherwise, this is going to dominate this game. And he does that. It's his deal with it. He puts 4. We get put out the Dread Knights out there. He with the Sigil one, and I have a way to deal without guns, and it's close by. So I end up coming around my turn. I end up tagging 2 Dread Knights. I want to say maybe it was just 1. Killing a strike squad and killing 4 Dread Knights.
Okay, so on your you killed just enough, but you were also tagging things. It seems like a big factor here with the boys, because people worry why you don't have choppas. You don't have to have choppas to maximize boys. Boys' power isn't in their killing.
The boys were dead because I forced to play with the boys, and then 4 Dread Knights or 5 Dread Knights. I think it was the 6th one was not in position. Naturally, going to kill the 20 boys. So he kills them. I think, but leaves the war boss, which great to have a random war boss running around. And the Weirdboy survives too. Awesome screen. He goes over there, jumps, gets out of here. So he kills the boys on the dot. And then Zodgrod, I call it the wall. Zodgrod then move out there, tags his home objective, tags whatever survivors. I throw a grenade, Tankbusta, and I think maybe a tank shock. I can't remember if that was a tank shock or if that was a war boss to finish off the guy that teleports and you shoot him. Never shot him. I just dealt with him in another way. And then the Morkanaut actually in this matchup really did a lot of damage. I think he killed a living, 2 Dread Knights, and 5 strikes. Yeah. Like, he was a real performer there, and he never died.
They don't have great.
And I just
whatever. Necessarily.
Yeah, no, exactly. The T12 was good there. The 20 wounds was hard, but also him being 6 damage melee just means get him out of here. It just was very, I tank shock you once. Yeah, fail 2 saves, you're dead.
Yes.
And with that in mind, I just pressed up there and so forth. One of the coolest things I got to do with this game was I got to really utilize the power at the turn 4, turn 5 scenario with a single Tankbusta into 2 Terminator Livies and a Caladius Assassin or Colossus.
They had a Caladius.
And maybe Caladius. Yeah. And that unit soloed all 3 of those units.
That's awesome.
Well, like my thing is like, okay, I go up the lines, I'm gonna tank, throw grenade, throw my bomb squig, kill 1 Terminator living, shoot 1 off the board, and then like I'm like, I'm still a knob. Yeah. I still got mech. I'm gonna go beat up this Caladius, and I beat it up in melee.
That's hilarious.
Boys still get it done.
Hey, boys still get it done. Yeah, they got 3 punches at base each, so that's a good game. That was a 75-point win. And then you go on to your second game, where we have Tyranids, the good stuff. Invasion fleet. We have a where's the characters? Well, it's a weird way it's written, but Biovore, 3 Exocrines, a Gargoyle, Hive Tyrant, Hormagaunt, 2 Lictors, 1 Maliceptor, a Norn Emissary, 2 Pyrovores, a 6-man unit of warriors with melee, and 2 Tyrannofexes, 1 with the Rupture Cannon. Yeah, I don't know if the typo just got put in there. They probably both had Rupture Cannons. All right, cool. So what were some big points about this game and all? How'd you feel going into it?
So perfect what you talked about the rupture cannons, because I read it and I just kind of lazily read it and I figured they both have rupture cannons. I'm like, oh great, these are kind of like pseudo dead. This matchup, no, that one does have acid spray, and I deployed in my game plan did not evolve acid spray. That one acid spray guy really tore my army apart. But it doesn't, just some good plays on my ends. Making sure to mitigate it after I realized I had acid spray at turn 2.
Why is that?
And my positioning and my priority I would have killed at turn 2, and prioritized it. I didn't.
Yeah,
that was a
for
big
anyone who's
mistake on me.
wondering. I'm gonna just call it out. So it looks, when you read it, you glaze over it because it almost sounds like a secondary weapon, because it's not like acid cannon or anything. It's just acid spray, which is actually a large weapon. It's a 18-inch range, D6 +6, strength 6, -2, 2 damage. So that guy would just wreak havoc in Overwatch constantly if he's in the middle of the game. He's on a big, thick chassis, T12, 16 wounds, 2-up armor save. He can also reduce the damage to 0, and he can pop a 5-up feel no pain because this is invasion fleet.
Yep.
Right. So he would take a lot of commitment to kill. That guy's always super annoying when he's on a list. Very impactful for orcs because of that Overwatch. So what were the big moments you think that you made it, that swung it back your way, and what were units you're really trying to get off here, like Zod or your castle, for example?
So my original game plan was, I'm like, as soon as I remove the extra crins and the army is like Tankbustas and Shock more specifically with AP5, just take them off the board.
Yeah.
Get the extra crins out here. The rest of the army, double rupture cannon can't cool, cop my 2 big transport, but it won't do much afterwards. Whoopsie. I killed that. I did that. Cool. But then I'm in a spot where I'm grinding at Scorched Earth, so it doesn't matter if I'm holding 3 to 4 objectives and some key turns. And he gets some 10s here and there. The game is relatively close, right?
How'd you pull down
because
the
of the
Norn?
nature of Scorched Earth? I didn't kill the Norn. The Norn ran out to a side skirmish, dealt with Zog and them, killed everything else around them, involving warriors, the gaunts, and so forth. And eventually made the Norn, he eventually killed him, but with a lot of work and also stopping the objectives. I did fail to jump turn 1 here to literally just never allow the Norn to get on its objective, and it probably would have died at that point, but I failed to jump that time. Oops. It still worked out because at that point, the boy unit became really important in dealing with and body blocking those big Tyranid buds with the acid spray and forcing them hey, if you want to overwatch the boys, go ahead. But the Flash, or not the Flash Gitz, the Tankbustas are going to run free then.
Yeah.
So it all worked out in there. Battle Wagon MVP in that one matchup because he was just, supplying pressure, tank shocking. He's one of the best things to go do with lictors in our army because lictors can't hurt him back. He goes up, tank shots him, throws a bunch of bullets at it. He has good profiles in melee against them. And, he 1v2 those things.
Sweet.
And eventually, it was a very much of a technical game. I got Storm Boys on the home objective of his, took his bio-war off. It was intense. It was extremely tight. I had to really turn on, hey, look, I put myself on the back foot. My opener was wrong, considering that was not acid spray. And he did a really good job of trying to stay in, but he's like, I'm feeling like I'm, falling behind here. He kept it a lot closer than I think he thought it was at turn 3 and 4. He had some good card draws at some moments that were really nice. And that was really it. A lot of it was super technical. I just had to really turn on the nozzle of hey, look, I'm behind, so I need to win all the little tactics and these skirmishes, the 9 points wherever I can get them, and maximize every piece I had. This was the hardest game of the entire weekend.
Awesome. Yeah, I do think I know that you were saying about your own technical mistakes, but Tyranids could also, or misreading, well, that was a mistake, but Tyranids can also pose some issues for orcs to an extent, between battle shock and certain other rules and abilities with fight first. So yeah, that's good that you pulled that one out. And we'll move on to your third game here because I got a lot to say, but I want to get through some of this before we start getting in, right? So we got Blood Angels, Liberator Assault Group. So we got Astroth, Captain with Jump Pack, Speed of the Primarch, Chaplain on Bike, Commander Dante. We have 1 unit of Assault Intercessors. We have 3 units of Assault Intercessors with Jump Packs, 1 Ball Predator with Twin Assault Cannon, a Death Company Marine with Jetpack unit with the Heavy Bolter. Okay, they got all the special weapons, Plasma Fist and such. And Outriders, 2 Outrider squads, 2 big bricks of Stern Guard units. I mean, sorry, it's not Stern Guard, Sanguinary Guard, excuse me. And then a 5-man unit or a 5-man unit of Stern Guard. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. 2 big bricks of Sanguinary Guard, just to be clear. So tell us a bit about this game.
So for everyone to know what happened in this game is at top of 2, all he had left was an Outrider squad, a Chaplain, and I think 5 Assault Intercessors.
Is this one of those games where the ideal turn happened and you made that castle in the middle and didn't allow him to jump in and punch you, and then you had great profiles into all his infantry?
Yeah, I got turn 1. I jumped up turn 1 shooting wise. I killed 5 JPIs, 3 of the Stern Guard, Astraf and his Death Company. Got one-shotted by a Tankbusta unit. Tankbustas, by the way, anyone that's not doing it, dude, those are anti-infantry also, because Blast is nuts. Like AP3 Blast just kills infantry. Like I killed, I want to say he told me like, it was over 500 points turn 1. I think it was like closer to 600. So then, like, and this I think is on layout 4. So I start over here, kind of in the fat corner of my deployment, redeploy to the Fin one. There's avenues all the way down to his deployment zone, and like, he can hide. If he wanted to hide his whole army from any angle, he had to deploy his army behind this home ruin, which is 4 inches away, the 6 inches away, between the 2 different table edges. So you immediately just give up massive board control. And he's playing, and it's Purge a Foe. So I do all that damage from 1. He sits there and contemplates for a while. He's like, I'm now so far behind. And he talked about his first, his game plan. And he was like, I'm just going to castle buildings and not let you shoot me. And wait till the end game, and I'm just going to overwhelm. He was pretty clear cut. Like, it's like standard, I would say, very common and normal approach to, melee armies versus gun lines, right? You're slowly just going to win the positioning game and the pace game, and just don't let them do damage. The thing is, I am a melee player primarily most of the time myself that happens to play my guns like they're melee units, and I know how to. I'm going to shove guns down your trenches and remove you from said buildings.
In that case, you do not castle like an orc, is what I was trying to point out, or like South Space Marine, for example. I was trying to point out earlier. When people think of this castle is not stationary with a central focal point for rerolls. This thing is moving forward, occupying space. The fact if you don't deal with it, like he's saying, to prolong it, means that you get to now activate in the combat phase by getting big charges off with these units that you were initially using for screening. So this gets really crazy out of hand. It does force the enemy's hand in a very initiative-heavy way, which you wouldn't really see looking at it firsthand. The redeploy plays a big factor in this too. So I'm just trying to point that out to people. Keep in mind, this is a still highly aggressive list. You can still do the things Orc do, but how he's running it is like a spear tip castle. Like you almost like you're dropping it from space to invade. Oh, you're an attack moon. We'll just say that. All right, so yeah, so that was pretty.
It's the Hammer of Gorg.
Yeah, dude, you're coming out with an attack moon list. That's what we should have called it, the Hammer of Gorg. So you just, like you said, Tankbusters are hyper elite units right now. Hyper efficient into elite units, whether they're infantry or vehicles in the meta right now, because that +1 to hit. This is their best detachment, in my opinion, even though you can do fun stuff in other detachments. Then we move on to his 4th matchup. So Demons, Nurgle, we have Plague Legion. We have 3 Great Unclean Ones, one with the Font Spores, the other one with Droning Shroud. 2 Poxbringers, Rodriguez, Sloppity Biopiper with Caker Blight, 1 Nurgling man unit, 3 10-man units of Plague Bearers, a Beast of Nurgle, 2 3-man units of Plague Drones, and a Soul Grinder. All right, so this is that new tech. So what was your idea going into this new tech, since we were how familiar with it? How'd you feel about this matchup?
I was familiar with it slightly, not really in depth, but I knew that their mobility. Like one of the things when I'm studying people is I look at people's mobility, and where key things to remember. How do people get around on mobile? Like, okay, it's standard demons. I know how to screen standard demons. And in this matchup, I'm like, cool. If I could never let him get within 12 inches of the Tankbustas, I'm going to table him eventually. Be it early game or mid game to late game, depends solely on dice rolls. It's a bunch of 4-ups being rolled at mass every single turn. If I go first, this game is done. I don't even have to kill him. I'm just going to win on positioning. I'm going to lock him into this deployment zone. He ain't going to start leaving his deployment zone really until like turn 3 at the best. I'm just going to attrition, kill all the trash, and just grind these greater demons out one at a time. And I'll give you a heads up. I went first. I did make a mistake with the Flash Gitz here, but only slightly. That could have been a slightly technical better position, or I could leave one Tankbuster unit inside of the battle wagon, because I did forget about it. We talked about it, and it went over my head. It was first thing in the morning. I was more or less making sure I wasn't executing this was not playing against Stashbit, not thinking about it right off the bat. He has an aura of 18-inch lone op off of one of the greater demons. Like half of my Tankbustas were within 18. So it was fine because he still couldn't get in range. So I make the jump. Awesome. Really wanted to override Zodgrod, and then we're just going to trap all the great unclean ones and the Soul Grinder and Waaaghtaktiks in his deployment zone turn 1.
Just walk right up to them, dude. Just walk right up to them. They can't do anything.
Right up to them. They can't do anything. Zodgrod, and I shot down a Soul Grinder because that was like the only thing I had really technical range to it. I killed some bloat drones with the Morkanaut. And then the boys also made their charge in. So that was an extra layer of walking. And what I did make sure was the Soul Grinder can walk over stuff. So I made sure he couldn't fall back forward to get in the middle of my army.
Okay.
So I made sure that couldn't happen. And then I just trapped that army in, killed a bunch of Plague Bearers, killed some drones, past turn. Then he's like, okay, cool. I just got to start digging through. And he starts digging, but at this point, War Boss, Weirdboy, Zodgrod, or kills this Soul Grinder. My next turn comes around. I kill a Great Unclean One. I kill almost all the remaining Plague Bearers. Like Flash Gitz on Overwatch just are the end of Plague Bearers.
Yes, they are. Perfect profile.
And he has no uppy downy. I make sure the Beast of Nurgle is not getting any really awkward positions that have a lot of strength for secondary draws that keep him in the game, denying him primary. And it is just like I didn't lose a Tankbuster unit. I didn't lose the shock attack gun. And I didn't it was very similar to turn 1 or game 1 where I'm like, I just have locked you down like an orc.
Yeah. But
I have overwhelming firepower, and I'm going to chew through you. The Morkanaut in this game just died. Okay? Really sad man. But he took 15 mortal wounds from battle shocks and 2 hazardous rolls.
Let's go. 2 hazardous rolls.
He did not
himself.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, that's 6 damage, and then he gave me so many battle shocks. Yeah. He died to the actual one melee swing hitting onto him was like a 2 damage Plague Bearer.
Okay.
It was ultimately killed him, but it was 1 Plague Bearer left and the Sloppity. So they're not lasting much longer.
No, they're gone. So that was a 100.
That's it. Yeah, that was a big old fat 100 for that tempo. And just locking them in, just doing damage. I did. Yeah. I left them with a Beast of Nurgle.
Okay, that's a great job by that. That's what Zod and having these weird boys, these layers, big bricks. Just you can't kill it, stop it, move it, maneuver where it can go, and what it can interact with. So that's awesome. Then we have, last but not least, my dandy of a list, Necron, Scatterstar. So everybody hated this. It got nerfed since this. So you were playing it when it was hated on. So we have a Hexmark Destroyer with Demanding Leader, Hexmark Destroyer with Chrono Fields, Silent King, a unit of Scorpex Spiders, 3 Doomsday Arc, 2 Flayed Ones, 2 Locust Destroyers, 2 individual Heavy Destroyers, an Ophidian, 2 Tomb Blades, and then 2 Triax Stalkers.
Yep. Before I get on this matchup, I just want to know your opinion, and I feel like it's probably going to be close to like what a lot of people's opinions. What do you think of this matchup?
Of this matchup? Oh god.
Yes.
So yeah, they don't have necessarily the type of output or like combined arms to really keep you off them, and you can kill stuff. Well, you Doomsday Arc can hit or miss, but you do have profiles. They're a little harder to kill than people would suspect, but they are getting wounded on 2s. Other than that, I mean, Scatterstar doesn't like when you can run right up on them and stuff them in their own deployment zone. So I mean, I have a feeling, did you end up just getting in the way going first, or what happened here?
Yeah, no. So we're set up deploying. So I want to say it's layout 4. DDAs are long and thick. Okay. Those guys are not easy to hide at a lot of different angles.
They have to go back.
So yep, I redeploy, put up there. If I go first, I'm taken out, and I sit there and like redeploy, and I talk to my opponent. And I do a Babe Ruth thing where at this point, like, I feel immortal. I call in my shot now because I'm just very confident in what I can do right now with this army.
Yeah.
And I sit there and say I'm going to kill DDA, Tryout Stalker, Tomb Blades, Locust Destroyer, and a Flayed One unit turn 1. And I call my shot. And I went first. The Locust Destroyer survived like he just survived. I like 2 wounds. But again, it was Crucible, so really easy redeploying that top kind of northerner fin corner, shove my guns down, put all the stuff down, drop 2 DDAs. One of them, the free Sagmex. I got 1 unit of Tankbustas, not even shoot the Tankbustas, just to shoot the Sagmex down 60 inches.
That's some faith, dude, because 4 Binvol's still a real thing in my life.
4 Binvol's a real thing, but I'm going to shoot you a free D6.
Yeah.
Plus 3, rerolling number of shots. Like, so I'm hitting you on 4s and wounding you on 2s.
Yeah, that's the thing, wounding him on 2s. And that's the thing, he's not used to orcs being able to do that, and if he does deploy where you're not able to activate on him and get him, then he's too far in the back of the field, and then comes your other maneuver where you're like, oh, you gave up too much space. That's the layers your list has, though. If it can't directly kill you immediately, it will occupy the space, force you to come out, and then it'll kill you in that case. So I love that. It's complete initiative and aggression in both combined arms forces, in both styles. You can either get in their face on foot, out of the transport, and shoot the crap out of them, and then start punching them. So that's awesome. And then at that point, you kill a bunch of the stuff. But I mean, could he even dig you out even if you had him? Yeah,
not really. The cool tactics I do want to put in this game, that how I handle the following going positions going forward, to make sure that, hey, look, I just secured the death, the win. I'm not going to drop the ball here. All serious with it. Like I look at my opponent, my friend. I'm like, I'm going to murder you. It's not because I'm trying to be malicious or nothing like that. I'm like, it's 10th edition. There's always a chance for turn 4, turn 5 comebacks if people just survive and play a game of 40K. So I'm like, I'm not risking that. I know I have this great lead and this great advantage after that turn 1, because his next turn comes around, and with like Silent King and the rest of his army, he only kills Zodgrod survives. Only his Gretchin die. That's the only thing I lose. Yeah, my turn 1. Or his turn 1.
That's what I'm saying. They don't have the necessarily tools that they want to dig all of that out if you get right on it, and then you baited it out. Regardless, in any matchup, even if you didn't go first, you can bait all this out and still have a similar style of gameplay. You have so many tools that the boys, like you said, killing the flayed ones, destroyers, anything like that. Orcs normally don't have a bunch of stuff to deal with that. You're like, I can kill all of that. Got my Mork out here that can go hard. That's amazing. I love how this list is unfolding when you're actually playing it. But it does
Yeah.
require the fundamentals, is what I will say.
Mhm.
There's no just copying and running this list. You need to understand the fundamentals to activate on every phase in this.
Your order of operation to shoot, like you said, every phase, and that goes in with like that for a teaching moment for people watching, is knowing how to apply Orc Mortal Wounds. Orc Mortal Wounds are really a skill that once you master it, know how to apply it in certain board states, really can make or break games. Okay,
we'll elaborate on that. We'll labor on that.
Yeah.
Mortal Wound thing when we talk about strats, because I do have actually follow-up questions. I just wanted to go through your list. Do you have anything else you want to say about this matchup other than you dogged them and we're awesome? I'm just kidding. The
matchup got it was like everyone's like, how do you feel about this? I'm like, in theory, I am them, but every way better. I'm going to obliterate them. It's like what my prep in my head was. I'm like, I'm trying to find a scenario where it was like really, I was at a disadvantage, and I'm just like, there's not. Their profiles are bad, and to me, I don't put anything on objectives. Just stop putting anything on objectives, and stealth goes the distance.
Stealth, baby. Yep.
Yeah.
In the bodies.
Like it's bodies, and he just doesn't have a way. And I failed the jump turn one that game. I felt a little nervous when I failed the jump turn one.
Yeah.
But that instead the boys just set on my home objective and like shot 2 trash units away with rocket launchers.
And like you said, if the boys aren't there, that's where Zod kind of fills up the gap, and he gets in their face, and they don't move, take up angles of fire. Silent King can't move sometimes, has to kill them. If not, it gets awesome. I love Zod. So other than that was your path to victory. That's how you secured, and you needed that 100-point win because John was right behind you as well, trying to catch up. So you had to make sure you score big on that last one. Huh?
The score didn't matter in that one. I think it was opponent win percentage. It was just opponent win percentages.
Yes, because the points here. Okay.
Yeah, I had 4 or 5 points advantage on my opponent win percentage because like one of his round 1 or round 2 opponents only won 1 game across the event. So that hurt his opponent win percentage, and every single one of my opponents went positive, I want to say. Either X and 1 or 3 and 2.
Okay.
So that helped out with that, giving me a decent lead there. Other than that, like it was that was just luck of the draw to see who got paired into who and how it happened. So cutthroat tournament. Cutthroat.
Oh, congratulations for that victory, dude. That was fantastic. So some more follow-up just questions to ease through this, and of course chat say what you guys got to say. I see you guys in the chats. Couple things that I want to hear a little more about is elaborate on Zod for us. I'm sold on Zod. I love him, but there's still a lot of new gets around here or people that aren't exactly sure about him. Why is he so pivotal to you and just kind of like a starting point for your list?
So I've been playing this guy for however long this edition's been. A few months after the edition dropped, and I picked up Porks again.
Since the Codex came out, at least.
Yeah, even before the Codex, just like the Index. It's like that guy was the same in the Index. Like I was like, it's Warlord. It's just good.
Yep.
And the thing is, this guy is the highest skill piece that we have in Army. If you want to talk about player expression for skill utilization, this unit does it. You could use this unit as a body blocker, a precision piece where it tags out certain characters with using the precision strat, and it just goes Unga Bunga first. Or reactive. It's also a great rapid ingressor. If you now, since we can get a collar wall in our turn, we get to rapid ingress during opponent's turn, call wall, torpedo this man up. Yeah. It gives so many extra elements that you can do with this unit. I have never felt like I've had full mastery of this unit. And the reason for that is because it has a footprint. It could also be a very small footprint. It could be a massive footprint because it's all on these 25 mil bases.
Yeah.
Extremely fast. Mm-hmm. With -1 to wound, there's a lot of things that don't beat it up as well. You kill stuff in melee. There's not a single turn in the game where Zodgrod's unit cannot make an impact.
Yep.
And it's up to you to find that impact. Sometimes it's just body blocking. In this matchup, it was making sure that people could just never put melee armies, can never jump on the main fire support. Or in the Ganon matchups where he goes up in like the Dread Knights, or the Necrons, where he goes up and tags all the other stuff I didn't shoot, so that disrupts their movement. They either got to fall back or stay in combat. If they want to shoot them, they got to get out, fall out of combat. If they're tagging tanks, Blast weapons can't stay in there, so you're really pinning down people's position. Um,
The mass
you
OC
have
also makes people kill them. It makes them. And
dude,
the footprint,
yeah,
and the footprint.
yeah,
All of that. You have to commit.
all of that.
He's trying to express to your people. People have to commit. It's not necessarily what he's doing. It's what he's forcing your opponent to do as well on top of what he's doing.
Yep.
You impact them with just his space. I like that you mentioned his footprint. His footprint is a big impact that people underestimate. 23 bodies, and 20 of those are 2 OC a pop. That's outrageous.
Yep. One of my favorite ways to get with Zodgrod is when I find a game state where I'm like, I'm going to try to get a couple extra Gretchin killed to get down to just the 2 herders and Zodgrod. And also, you use C5 -1 wound. That'll beat up every other Marine unit in the game if it's, trash. Any Marine unit that's 100 points or below.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to handle that unit. Wounding on 6s hurts Marines really badly. You never want to, for the moment, Rut Herders and Zodgrod.
Yeah,
you never want to do that.
That's so fun. I'm gonna have to try that now. I'm gonna have to try that now. So Zod's fantastic. I love him. You love him. Up to you guys to figure out if you're gonna love him and use him too. But let's talk about Storm Boys. So how do you maximize Storm Boys? For example, why not a 10-man unit? And what do you do with them when you're utilizing them in this detachment? Other than the obvious ways, of course, but whatever way.
So in this matchup, I'm either using them in an extra layer of screens like the demons. They eventually turn into a layer of extra screens once you got past Zodgrod and the boys. The other thing is out of these action monkeys. I always start 1 on board, 2 off board. And in some deployment zones, I came down with containment on Crucible, and it was the ritual. And I have 3 units within 9 inches of the very corner of the board, right? Very much right there. This is against the Necron game where behind all my guns, the Morkanauts, all that stuff. I drop all 3 units within 9 inches of the table quarters, do a ritual, do containment, and 2 different table quarters because it's Crucible in that little corner how it cuts out where it's like this. And I have Storm Boys all right here, doing 3 actions, and they're buried. You can't deal with it, and you're just like, I'll go up, I'll go back down. Next turn, the other units will apply, go forward, do actions, or start, throwing a grenade, doing their strat on the charge. And them being battle alignment and all the random mission rules were really nice for them, or secret missions. I use my Storm Boys extremely conservative. I never want to lose a unit. If I lose a unit, that's because I'm trying to end the game or I'm really desperate. Yeah. The Storm Boy units are the most important things to protect for 5 turns. Yeah, I want 2 units typically across at least the bottom 2 to 3 turns. If I lost one at that point, that's fine. But really, I'm trying not to ever be in that position. Yeah. Because they're just machines.
Yeah, you let them use for screen. Other than that, trying to use the uppy down mechanic so you can consistently move with them and maximize the deep strike that they have. To make that enhancement really reliable. That's awesome. Love it. And then we have you mentioned the Morkanaut, mentioned the wagon, mentioned the Weirdboy, shock attack gun, big mech and mega armor. If you feel like elaborating on that compared to, let's say, a shock attack gun. I'm sold on the mega mech, but how is he for you? What do you feel about him?
He's great. Honestly, his profile, his shooting is awesome with the Flash Gitz. I've had some builds where I'm building with this, with Taktikal Brigade, where I'm bringing a lot of custom Mega Blasters, and that gun is very, very good.
Yeah.
It's very handy in there. If combined with the 4 pinball was great on them and giving stealth, it made the Flash Gitz really good about, hey, look, I'm going to out-attrition you out. But Flash Gitz typically against harder targets would hit stuff and then die. And this thing gives you a level of sustainability with the unit, but it means that even tougher targets you get to deal with. And with not even talk about rerolling hits. That unit's pretty nutty. I was really back and forth. If I even wanted it into in my list for this event. And the thing that actually ultimately sold it to me, the unit, was actually the Morkanaut. Because he was a great escort for them. a great transport for them. And I was really like, that was a selling point because I've already said it was going to be like a battle wagon with the kill cannon. And I was just like rolling that unit out. I'm like, I'm just not really impressed by this. I couldn't fit, one of the other units was like 2 5-man Ludo squads with regular mechs in them with custom Mega Blasters. Again, like that's 12 Mega Blaster shots coming from 4 models.
Oof.
But I couldn't fit them, 2 packages of them, and the Flash Gitz inside of a battle wagon. That's 23 models. So I dropped that and went to and like to put in some context out of that Saturday before the event. Let's start due yet. They're due in a few days. And I made a grave mistake. But it was very, very productive. It was actually a very fun time. We got out there and do stuff. Of going with my girlfriend to go get her hair done. That took 7.5 hours. So I had a lot of time to really build, sink in this army, and just educate myself. Not just here's feelings, here's some theory ideas. What's going on? This is nearly 7 hours of critical thinking on this.
Okay.
And that's what sold it. That's what sold the Morkanaut. Because I was trying to build with a battle wagon, some kill rig builds, or hunter rigs, a 20-man beast snagger boys, which I really like in this statue too. But then eventually, that's also what sold me on thinking of the game plan. I'm in my truck with my codex flat like a little tabletop, putting down dice as unit placements and practicing my redeploys, and then other people down the alleys and terrain. I'm making a mock battle on my codex with dice. Okay? And that's what sold me on the 20 boys, and it was this shit in there. And the Morkanaut and Morkanaut. Well, I don't know how else to tell you how wild that is.
You're selling it too, and that is definitely wild, but you're known for being a madman, Mr. Mork Perry. So here I want to talk about what are the stratagems did you end up using the most in this detachment, let's say. A lot of people are wondering all the time. You mentioned your mortal wounds, for example. Maybe we could start a little bit with some of that. And yeah.
Man, the mortal wound strategy actually I think I only used once. It was nice, but actually it was no, mortal wound for me is bomb squig, grenade, tank shock. There's a critical mass here where how I just deal with threats. That's how I killed the Silent King. Mm-hmm. I throw a massive amount of mortal wounds and never put bare minimum saves on it. I practically mortal wound out and some rocket pistols out the Minears, and threw some more damage at it, and then I'm okay, cool. Oh, you're at 12 wounds left. Here comes a Morkanaut with 6 damage. And actually I didn't get to use the reactive move. I actually did hilarious in the Necron game with the Morkanaut to go chase. I actually reactive move into a different angle from the Silent King because he did survive. To go kill the Galactopus Hexmark Destroyer. Just to get that position where I could. But for me, it was a fallback shooting charge. I used that stratagem more than anything else. Mm-hmm. It was the standout stratagem for me. I think I popped lethal or sustains once each. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of any other scenarios. Not really too much. A lot of my stratagems, I was always at a good amount of CP, so I had all the utility strats to my advantage. Mm-hmm. And I did the Necron game. I think I ended with 4 CP still left. Those last 3 games really went really easily. That I didn't need the stratagems too much. The fallback shoot and charge was the most impact strat across the game.
What
everyone else kind of came as a toolbox.
Very situational. A lot of the other stratagems like the fallback cinches and chase someone, but the fact that you could maximize the fallback shoot and charge is because your list really maximized each of those defensive capabilities that orcs have. That isn't really notable, as in when you're speaking of the volume of bodies you have. Sure, a lot of people have guns that can delete a unit, a ton of bodies here. So you take maximum advantage of the fact that you have to kill all these dudes. If you don't, a war boss, Weirdboy, a Knob will fall back and charge you. If you don't fully kill Zod, Zod will fall back, charge with a Runt Herder, and kill you. If you don't kill the Tankbusters or you try to tag them, they will fall back and then delete you. The fact that you have a Mork and the Battle Wagon means either of those guys can fall back and charge. Typically, people have enough anti-tank to kill one of them, but not necessarily both of them on the same turn, and then also have the supplementary firepower in shooting and combat to then pick up 40 Orc Boy bodies and all the Knob bodies that are behind that. So because you maximize these different defensive stat potentials, meant that people don't really have the proper profiles for all of this all the time. So you can fall back and charge, fall back and shoot with something continuously. And that's why that stratagem seems so good, particularly on this list, because a lot of different orc units don't really survive, or lists don't survive to access fall back and shoot or charge. They're typically dead. But this list takes advantage of that, which allows you to take advantage of everything else. I think that's fantastic. And that stratagem, the general strats you took advantage of, Overwatch, tanks, stuff like that. Anything else you want to mention?
Man, that's really it. Like, it was a great event. Shout out for Robert Demings putting up the events. If you're in the South, absolutely see if you can make it out to his events.
So,
and then John really wanted to play me, and I really wanted to play him in a way, but at the same point I didn't. So shout out to Art of War for I finally dethroned John from not winning a Robert Demings GT. It was my first time going undefeated and winning the event. I have like 2 overtimes at his events where I've gone undefeated, but I got second because tiebreakers.
There you go, my kid. Congratulations to you. And last thing, any possible changes for this list that you seen going forward?
So if there's one thing on there that it makes me worry, and this is just me trying to control the variables, is I love to jump with the boys. I love that ability. But when you're in the game replay, I failed it 2 times turn 1. The engine that I would swap out for the boys right now, and maybe some other stuff, and that's where maybe I do pick up the big or the regular mech for the redeploy if I have a guy on board, would be free shock jump dragsters. And the reason why is because they get to auto go up and down during the movement phase, so I can see how they place and place it down. I know what's going to happen, versus sometimes where I deploy my army, push it up, and I do not know if I'm going to fail the jump or not.
Yeah, for sure.
They allow me to concentrate everything down that angles. Like this, they won't get a shoot. But if my opponent doesn't deal with them the next turn, there will be consequences. These 12-inch moving vehicles are going to throw a rocket on you. They're going to throw. I'm going to try to throw all 3 of them into like a character if I had sniping potentials. They're going to start tagging stuff. They're maybe take a tank shock in key spots where like a thing is left at a wound or 2. They're going to try melee a little bit. There's going to be a whole lot of problems there during the follow-up turns. Again, digging you out of the trenches, forcing game states to progress. They're also great at doing secondaries. Like sometimes when you're like, I don't want to sacrifice a Storm Boy. I got the Secret Sauce Storm Deep Striking turn 1 Storm Boy. That's called a shock jump.
Yeah.
Go. There's plays there that I do like for having shock jumps.
Yeah.
It's a matter of thinking about it. Yeah.
Shock jump has the most play out of the buggies and just random detachments. Took mine in Dreadnought. That's awesome. MVP unit from your list as a whole. Maybe let's say not Zod. Or are you going to say Zod?
No, I mean Zod is like expected to do those things, so it's not like he's like sticking out as like I'm just the best ever. Yeah. The Battle Wagon.
Ooh, let's go Battle Wagon. Ooh, okay. Elaborate a little bit on that.
So one is holding 22 models. It holds 22. I'm putting 21 models in it. Redeploy picks that thing up, puts it down anywhere. That's a massive amount of points for placement. It's protecting all my units. Ard case is on there. A lot of people ask, like, why do you make it Ard case and not just open top? Because my guys aren't staying in there. They're getting out there and getting their benefits. It's great. Tank shocker, fallback charge strat on that thing is busted. It has great anti-infantry volume. It has decent melee. It pushes up. It's good OC. Man, the Battle Wagon is like my favorite orc vehicle at the end of the day.
Me too.
And like typically I'm always double Battle Wagon Church, but this time we got upgraded to a Morkanaut. Yeah. And man, dude, like that thing is always making plays. And no one fully respects it because it's so flexible. I played a lot in last edition with Blood Axe, Battle Wagons that had an innate fall back, shoot, or charge. And let me tell you those things. Like when those things were 105 points with that rule, it was crazy. It was awesome. Like they're just tagging everything saying, deal with me.
Awesome. No. Well, Battle Wagons.
And they do that same thing.
Yeah. And so what are other archetypes you'd like to explore for this detachment? So what are some other variety other than this really off the wall madness?
I mentioned some of the ones earlier, like, and I think they've already been, like, I was watching some of your videos earlier. I got interrupted. Some people are already having success, so I can't tell you the guys' names right off the bat. Horrible names. But 20-man beast snag boy units are very, very good inside of this detachment.
That's Stephen Pamprine. Shout out
Stephen Pamprine. Yep. Yeah. I haven't seen that man in a few years.
Yeah, he was. He's awesome. I like that guy. He's in the Discord too. He's
awesome.
He's back out and about. He kicking butt. He just did great. So, yeah.
Yep. How like that unit has great things. The Hunter Brig has that potential because it holds at 20. You maximize that redeploy. There's some tempo plays here to be done.
That's wild. I love that. That's exciting.
I have to consider thinking still about a solo plane and this archetype for securing in team events where I'm like, I'm just going to decimate you even harder, bring in one plane to get behind my opponents easier. May not be needed. That utility box. I had some triple smash or Breaker Boys and Tankbustas builds, but I ultimately decided that this was just dumber and more unfair. And I guess you could say like this was not just a stronger list, but it brought a lot more over the top in what it could do. And I think those results show that a little bit. And I decided not to take that ones because like the Breaker Boys, I think in certain metas are really, really good. I like them, but the pace there required me to play more games and wasn't as much theory crafting in my setups, right? There's a lot more of me interacting with my opponents, but like obviously like running 6 to 8 bomb squigs in one turn with like commandos on top of that, pretty strong. And so I levitated towards that, and then man, there's just a lot. Taktikal Brigade gives a lot of offers.
Yeah, it really does, dude. So much offers on that.
I'm so excited to play. Like, I gotta take Shoota Boyz, and I saw it was crazy. I posted it in my team chat, and then no one knows Shoota Boyz. I'm like, that's weird. I don't even know what they do anymore. And I'm like, no one does. I had to sit there and like, what convinced me finally to resolve on them was because I just rolled it out a bunch, and I was like, this does what I want it to do without having to make a charge.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm pretty sold on it, dude, because they're right. There are a lot of things that come out early game that are weak, little Space Marine type bodies, T3, 10 bodies, and you kind of
GSC, like Final Day is popular.
Yeah, orcs don't have something to really kill that too reliably for like cheap without having to run up and punch it, and then you could just fail charges, can't really get the distance for that usually has the same speed. So it is a really nice way to get that interaction off and to pretty much act as like a Kickstarter. You know, these guys they go first, and then everything else starts going alongside your wagons and your mork. So that's pretty sick. And I think right here we'll go into the super chats and the chats, and then close out. So we have 10 gifted Waaaghtaktiks memberships from Wicked Joe. Whoa! And shout out to all those gits at LVO right now. Heck yeah. And then we got the Fighting Fedora said, more grots. More grots. We need more grots from you, Mr. Petty.
More grots.
And Dread Mob. And then we have Murder Mouth, proper wagon. The points is the pain, but whoa. Yeah, the 160 is a steal.
It's steep.
And then we have Aaron with 13-month membership. So, all in all, I loved your list. You sold me on a couple of those points. I'm glad we got to elaborate on that. I was just playing that out in my head on how that looks. And just about every game I played with tactics, I could still see this working out exactly that same way and functioning. So, yeah, sold on a lot of these key points. Morkanaut's still blowing my mind to an extent. But, I mean, usually him in Dread Mob. So that's really cool. So where can we find you, and any last thoughts, sir?
You can randomly sometimes on Hobby Goblins over on YouTube, or you could just find me if you tag me in the Discord, I will reply. You just got to remember to tag me. I'm really bad about communicating on the internet, but if you tag me and ask me questions, I will get to my best reply to them. Other than that, Man, like, I don't know. I'm kind of a caveman. I'm a professional Lorax. I watch over the trees.
You're an epitome of the orcs, sir. So thank you very much for joining us. Shout out to the Hobby Goblin Gitz as well, because you rocking the jersey right now. And thank you everyone that showed up. And congratulations, sir. And I appreciate you very much. So
Thanks,
one thing
sir.
to keep in mind is don't cross the wall or we not get eval. Whoa.